with the man himself, Mr. Curtis Williams, who is the chairman of the Tobago division of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning and welcome to your viewers and listeners. It's a pleasure being here.
Right, this morning we're talking a bit about what has happened in Tobago over the Easter period. Usually we know that is one of those periods where we see a surge in tourism on the island. Tell us a bit about what has been reported back to the chamber, and we're going to touch a bit on that incident that took place in Pigeon Point as well during our discussions this morning. But of course we want to start off with Easter. Was Easter a bumper season as was Carnival in October, or have we seen a different pattern?
Well, up to yesterday, we had a committee meeting and we at the chamber and we discussed Easter among other things. And from the reports on the ground, Easter have been really different from the previous. So we see that there was an upsurge of visitors on the island. Some of the folks within the tourism sector did extremely well. Others were just on the average. And then so we know for sure with the new dispensation, I realized that there's a calendar of events for the year. So there's a little more structure. I'm seeing a little bit of structure coming out of the festival committee commission, where they indicated like a roadmap for the year as to all the events coming up, and just encourage the guys and them into all the different aspects of planning. We can now sit down and plan going forward, and I'm happy about that. I read a message yesterday that the stakeholders is going to meet with the tourism secretary, and we're going to discuss more into that plan, especially going into the October Carnival. So I'm excited to see what again the festival committee is doing for the island in terms of activities and all the different vendors and all, we can actually see what's happening and plan accordingly, which is good.
Right. And I remember us having this conversation late in 2025 about the role of the private sector as it pertains to helping to increase or broaden the reach of the Tobago Carnival, and the fact that it is expected that all business persons on the island will participate in the festival by helping to create that hype through marketing, having those Tobago Carnival specials and sales and promotions, just like you see happening for that Trinidad and Tobago Carnival at a national level. You almost see all corporate entities doing something to promote what is happening at around Carnival time, to play on that. Usually when you are in Port of Spain and you see all the branding for Carnival, it's usually tied to some organization, whether it's one of those fast-moving goods company or one of those big furniture producers like Courts or whatever entity. You see corporate entities coming on board to create that hype and that liveliness. Is that a part of the conversation for the chamber in Tobago about the role of the private sector in also boosting the energy surrounding Tobago Carnival?
Apparently you were in the meeting last night, because those were some of the things that we discussed. The private sector playing a critical role in the Tobago Carnival. Maybe like a month leading up to the carnival, offering specials in accommodation and in different events. It's like a passport. It's like a Tobago Carnival passport, where you have a series of events that you could attend to once you get that passport. And so we're trying to look at the business aspect of the Tobago Carnival. We as the chamber, that's the part that we want to play, the business aspect of it, and how Tobago small business can really get back from the Tobago Carnival. I know the money invested is a huge amount from the THA and other players. So we want to see how we can make that into reality, and it goes down to the smaller man on the streets, and so that everybody win from it all, and not just certain sector will be flourishing and the other sectors are crippled. The integrate part of it, and I think it's something that we discuss about, is getting across to Tobago. So we know that for sure Caribbean Airline, the Port Authority, had to play an integrated part in getting the visitors here. And that's always the story. I'm trying to book and I can't get across. But I can tell you now, because some friends called me from Dubai and they want to get into Tobago and they can't get in because the flight, everything is booked up already. some of the accommodations is full already. All right, so I can tell you it's going to be a real bumper to 2026 Carnival. So all those folks who hearing us, listening us, watching us, plan early, because that, I mean, I can tell you accommodation is already filled for Tobago Carnival. Some of the major accommodation spaces, they're already filled. So I know airline tickets are going to be going, Sea Bridge tickets are going to be going. So it meant that Caribbean Airline and the Port Authority will have to up the game and ensure that they could bring the visitors across to Tobago safely around that period.
Right. And, you know, in previous years, we've heard complaints about persons saying that the Tobago House of Assembly or the Festival Commission has taken too long to start promoting the Tobago Carnival. But since the beginning of the year, we've seen the promotions happening from the National Carnival level come right down to Easter, where we've seen a lot of visibility in the branding for October Carnival. How is the Chamber dealing with this? Are you guys satisfied in what you are seeing being demonstrated compared to previous years? And what are some of the recommendations as it pertains to that international appeal outside of just the local marketing?
Well, I'm happy to say that a member of our team is on the commission, and I can see new spirit, new blood on the commission. I can see the excitement on the Tobago Festival Commission. They are not dreamers. They are people who really want to see things happen. And I must say thanks to whoever is the one that's responsible for putting that board together. And it's a mix of vibrant people, forward-thinking folks there. And I've seen a lot of activity happening, and they're not waiting until mere 2 months. They already done start to roll out a lot of stuff for the Tobago Carnival and the other festival leading up to the Tobago Carnival. So the deeper conversation now is to treat with all the promoters and all the ones who want to get into the space, so that they're able to put the events and them a bit more spread out.
Correct.
Instead of putting one day, having 5 events on one day, and then, so we can make the whole of October, because remember the carnival is at the end of October, just going on to the 1st of November. So what we can see is the whole of October going straight
end of September.
Yes, going straight into November, that you have activities all well spaced out and well thought about. And I think that would be real energy into the system. And instead of one day, we having 5 and 6 events where everybody is going wrong like a turtle from one next to the next. It doesn't make sense.
I like that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things that I kept harping on in 2025. Why not gauge salaries at the end of September going into October, as opposed to trying to get everybody's pay at the end of October for Carnival?
Correct.
Usually we have the National Carnival that takes place February, sometimes March. The events take place from January, coming right down every weekend. There's something happening. There's an all-inclusive. There's a boat ride. There's a cooler fete. Something is happening to continue to engage persons. And you have Tobagoans that go down on the weekend, come back, participate in these events. And so I'm happy to see that that is a part of the conversation as it pertains to spreading out those activities, instead of having 2 days or 3 days leading up to the carnival where everybody wants to have their event on those days.
Yeah, and that's good. That's really, really, really good. So that's, and the meeting that to be carded with the stakeholders, I think that's going to bring some kind of meat to it. And it will, I think, let's look at it this way. This 2026 is going to be, I think, going to be the mega of the carnival.
Right.
And I'm just concerned, as I said, always concerned of getting people across to Tobago. We had that influx, and how best we can work with that. Whether the THA going to wet lease aircraft, with Caribbean Airline do have the capacity to bring people across for the month of October, September, October, November. All these things will have to be worked out to ensure that we get visitors across here. So those folks coming in from North America, those folks coming in from Europe, that make sure that they can get across to Tobago seamless. Because there's a lot of folks from North America in the US is coming in. And I can tell you, there are packages, there are people putting out packages already, and seats and accommodations are already filling up. So it's important that we keep these things in mind.
Right, and then we segue into the conversation, because persons, when they come to the island, they want to find out what can they do when they get to Tobago. That's an important part of the Tobago experience. And the conversation has happened about training, the quality of service offering, safety, regulations, and licensing, not just for jet ski or water sport operators, but for tour operators, persons that operate hikes, persons that are doing 5Ks, whatever it is that persons decide to have around that time. There should be a certain level of oversight and a particular standard of services being offered, because what is being offered during this time for the tourists has to do with the long-term view of the island for many persons, whether it be their first or second time visiting the island. So what is the discussion surrounding ensuring that service quality is a part of the mandate going into this October Carnival? Because you have a number of persons saying, I'm not going back to Tobago again after that time. This person was rude to me. I had a bad experience on the airport. I had a bad experience when I went to Store Bay, and I had persons coming up to me and jostling me for a boat tour or whatever. Do you think that it's important or crucial for these things to be put in place before such a huge influx on the island?
And you're correct, and that will be part of the conversation with the secretary about the customer service treating with visitors on the island. Is not of the level of appreciation, even treating our own self, our own Tobagonian, treating each other when we see the level, where you are, and you know, and these kind of things, and you know, where you calling for, and you know, you're not getting that nice customer service that you so expect. So if we can practice it among ourselves, how can we do it for visitors? And that's something that we, the business community, look at, and we're looking at it very, very closely. And we've seen it everywhere. We've seen it in the financial institutions. We've seen it in the place we go to the service stations. We've seen it all over. So it's important that customer service be there. The same thing with the risk evaluation, risk management. So once you enter into business with tourists, there are basic insurance that you must have, which is public liability. So you cannot, and I think then we have to set the standard through the THA, that you have to put standards in all these folks who offering services to these guests. The main one is public liability insurance. You must have insurance, public liability insurance, and then you must be able to cover your workers. So you have to have workers' compensation. So two main insurance that you must have, you having employees and you know having guests, people coming into your business place. So you must have public liability to cover them in case of any accident or incident, as the case may be. So those are some basic things we were looking at. Our risk people, our insurance people within the chamber were talking about it, and how much of these people are trained and certified to do what they're doing. I mean, to drive a car, you have to be trained, and then you have to be licensed. So you get a license to operate a motor vehicle, and that's the only way the insurance company will give you the because you're competent. You reach a level of competency. And unfortunately, we see what's happening in the space where most of the owners, and we could segue into it and talk about the jet ski. And I'm sorry to the family.
Yes, and we're going to touch on that, but I want us to take a quick break right here, and we'll get into the details of that after this season. Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, then we have been chatting a lot about what has been happening in Tobago for the Easter period and what can be expected from our carnival period that will be coming up, looking at that large influx of tourists on the island and how that affects the business community. This morning we have in studio with us Mr. Curtis Williams, who is the chairman of the Tobago division of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And we're going to touch a bit on that tragedy that struck recently at the Pigeon Point Heritage Park. And as I said yesterday, we're in a season where, you know, when tragedy happens, persons get emotional, and with emotion comes that wanting to put the blame somewhere or on someone. But the focus has to be on creating a system that avoids this type of thing from happening again in the future. What has the conversation been like at the level of the chamber as it relates to this incident that happened?
Well, as I said, first thing, and we want to send our condolences to the family of the young girl. It's heartfelt. I wasn't around, but I got the information and I felt, oh my goodness, this is really, really, really terrible. And who to take the blame? And we always want to pass the blame. But well, I as a Tobagoan, I accept the blame. Right, because it is my country, and we ought to have things in place to protect our citizens.
So do they send the suit to you?
No, what I meant that we should take the blame. So she started to say, well, it's he or she or them or them. Take the blame as the head. Take the blame. Because the thing is that Pigeon Point or even the Marine Park, this Tobago itself, and we know tourists, and I mean, I know a lot of folks who work within the tourism sector. I spent a lot of time around tourists. I'm working the cruise ship division of Disney, and I've been on Disney Island, and where we treat with tourists 2,700 tourists every single week. And we had to manage these people, all the risks, jet ski, you name it. We have everything going on. But the idea is managing it. And the first thing in managing all these different things is to put policies in place. You have to have policies in place. And policies that goes with enforcement. So policies is rules and directions in which you want the operators to, work in the space safely, and there's enforcement. So if you break the rules, this will happen to you. This will be.
And even in the conversation yesterday that I had with Attorney Martin George, he laid out somewhat of a three-step approach to the regularization, regulation, and enforcement. A number of, and I heard from one of the operators, one of the stakeholders, Mr. Frankie from Frankie Tours, saying that we currently exist in a time where persons can go import a jet ski and put it out on the water without it being licensed or certified. So who is to say who can and who cannot operate these jet skis or other water sport? How often should they be certified? Is it a yearly thing? Should they be subjected to health and safety training, that type of thing? How should a person be briefed before going on a jet ski? Do you just tell them, hold on tight, put on your life jacket, and what is there emergency briefing that says in the case of if you fall, there's something on your life jacket, you pull it, there's a whistle, there's a bell, there's just common things that make persons feel safer, or put something in place that says we have some level of structure when security is concerned.
Correct. And I expect now, lesson to be learned, and so we start off with dealing with the policy part of it. So whether it's the division of tourism or the division of environment, which one of the divisions will be one spearheading this whole thing? I remember recent years gone by, they used to have a reef patrol, and there were two boats that the THA had, and the guys and them were precepted, and they used to go on the reef to ensure that all operators was there. And they were precepted, so they could have detained you.
Those reef patrols.
Yes, they could have detained you, they could arrest you because they were precepted, and all those things just fall apart within the last years gone by. So we have to. It's not to say that it wasn't there, it just fall apart for some strange reason. So the powers that be, the THA now have to look, let's put the policy down, let's put the guidelines in, let's look at the enforcement aspect of it, and then we have to have someone policing it. Right? Let me don't look at the putative measures. We can't have the police out there. The police is not rare. You see police on the sea, and most police, unless they belong to the marine aspect of the police, but the normal police going out on the seas is a very hard task. The Coast Guard have bigger things to do, and so they to really rely on doing just that coastal patrol for marine activities, etc. So hence the reason why the teacher had to form a team of people, a department of safety or something that will employ the different skill set. So you'll have people out there with small boats or even same jet ski that will be policing that area, because a jet ski is a craft that can move fast. So you can get to an emergency, you can get to someone and in terms of emergency. And then you put all the necessary things, because we realize that how tourism is so flexible and fragile for us. It's important that we build out everything in that space. So we're talking about putting in enforcement, we're talking about putting in policies, and we're talking about even response services, medical, in case of emergency, because it's water sports.
Right. But even last year, when there were two major incidents that took place out on the reef, I remember there was the incident where there was an altercation on one of the boats with a guy who was wielding a cutlass. And then there was the one where a boat was overloaded and was sinking within the Pigeon Point Park. And there was that Marine Park committee that was put in place to look at what was happening out there, make their recommendations and enforce some of the policies. So I don't think it is to say that there isn't persons who are there sitting and talking about it and making recommendations. But even from the public perspective, we as members of the public, we want to see implementation. And we've sat and we've spoken about it for so long. We've heard some of the best ideas come to the forefront, some of the greatest minds, but we want to see implementation. We want to see enforcement.
Correct, and you're correct. And we, as you know, we are 90-day wonder. So after, everything gonna die down and everybody gonna go back to the regular. It reminds me of this story when the operators and them, they used to have them, there was a booth that they created for them to sell the tickets at. It went on for a couple of weeks, and then suddenly a guy said, well, I ain't getting much sale, huh? Let me go out in front, I gonna catch the tourists and then before they come in. And then one started to outside and then the next one, and so forth, and the whole thing just fall apart until it becomes really uncontrollable.
Right.
So again, put in policies without enforcement, without policing it, the same policy, monitoring and evaluating the policy, then you really don't have anything.
Right, and honestly, when we think about the boat tour operators on the reef, my perspective of how it can work effectively is to remove the boat tour operators from ticket sales completely outside of their own website where they can do the bookings and stuff like that. Because when I look at how it's done globally, you have one central ticketing area where, let's say for instance, the Tobago facility has hired someone to work in that booth, and you come in, you see all the tour times, just like you go to a movie. It's as if, when you go to the cinema, you have all the producers of each movie, they're selling their own movie, but you have a box office. And in that box office, you go, you see what time and you see what tours are available. There should be a description of each tour, what is offered, the different prices, or even a barcode or QR code where you can go online, you see different photos, you see the actual experience, you might see their social media pages, and you make your decision which tour you want to go on and completely remove them from the ticket sales aspect of it. And this is how we see it working globally. So why can't we institute things like that?
And that's a good idea, that you have all of them into the group and they will be all licensed, they will be all trained, and there will be that if I can pull your license and you won't be able to operate if you're doing things contrary and so forth. And then you alert all the guests and visitors, do not go with somebody who is not a member
certified
of, right, they probably have a sticker on them or something.
Correct.
So if you do go with somebody outside of that, you expose your risk, and then you know that you will have injury and you blame nobody but yourself.
Right. But the tour operators that you can find at the box office, those are the ones who we support, who are certified, who are licensed, who on a yearly basis, they are subjected to testing and training and stuff like that.
And that's correct. Because most of the jet skis, the owner is not the operator. And there are hustlers who are out there who want to hustle the jet ski, for you call it. And they're guys trying to make as much money as possible. Some of them will, in way of advertising the jet skis by driving the jet ski across the ocean in a ridiculous manner, and it looks exciting to the younger ones. Oh, mommy, I want to go on that. Daddy, I want to go and take that. That looks exciting. And again, you know how jet ski operates, right? So it's important that these operators understand that. And the teacher put things in place, not a committee. I want them to form a department that have people working there doing these things.
Right.
Because committee tends to just fall apart. So we want the enforcement. So we want the policy to be written properly. We want the enforcement, and then we want the monitoring and evaluation going forward.
But there does exist the Pigeon Point Board, and I know I heard conversations about changing the name of the Pigeon Point Board to a more broad approach to the marine parks and seas and areas, because really and truly the Pigeon Point Park is only one aspect of the offering as it pertains to the sun, sea and sand, and some of the natural assets that the island has. But then the question lies, can one board truly oversee Buku, Stowaway, Pigeon Point, Swallows, Mount Irving, or do we have to have an organization or a committee or a board that is focused on Tobago West, one is focused on Tobago East, probably one on the north side? We have to look at the structures that could be put in place to oversee, put that oversight and that level of enforcement.
Well, I look at within the office of the chief sec, I think there's a secretary there, Secretary Tate,
Right.
that was given the responsibility for safety and security.
Right.
So within his division or his department, he could now have a structure to oversee that
Right.
whole. I'm working in conjunction with TEMA, working in conjunction with the Coast Guard, working in conjunction with the police, and that's where I see this whole thing building out from. And instead of we having scattered people all over trying to do the same thing and nothing has been done. So within that said office, I think Assemblyman Tate could really champion this thing going forward. And he sits with his crafters, his drafters, and the legal people and all, and we put the policies in place. And he meets with the various stakeholders, because there ought to be some buy-in from the stakeholders. You don't put policies to guide me and I have no say in the policy, because it might be too draconian. So you meet with the stakeholders, so you have an idea about input, and then you start to draw out your policies on them and your enforcement. In order to do this, you must be that, and so forth. In any profession, even in my profession, the last couple of weeks I was doing continuous professional education. So in order to keep your license, so in order for me to keep my license and keep my credibility and designation, I have to go to training every year as a professional, every single year, to keep this going. And look, me as a professional doing it. So why the other folks on them who within the fields, and doctors do it, lawyers do it, all professional services, you have to continue having these CPE points, that you have to be continue training and understanding the industry revolving and how you have to put yourself in a position to understand what's happening in the space. Because it's not just getting a qualification or getting a certification and you have that forever. It don't work like that. So the same thing with these guys with the jet skis and so forth. They must be able to bring these craft into some kind of inspection. They must be able to come and do some kind of recertification to ensure that you're capable of, because after years, your operator or the owner or whoever is the one might not be able to operate it, as the case may be. So there must be some aspect of it going forward, and I treat with it as, and I think that's important that the Secretary Tate could look at that under his department.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for being here this morning with us, Mr. Williams. And thank you for giving us those perspectives, particularly as it pertains to what we can look forward to at the end of the year.
Yes.
You know, one of the biggest times, you know, before it used to just be Easter. Persons used to prepare for Easter on the island, and now we've diversified to have a number of offerings that persons can look forward to having that heightened influx of tourists on the island. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we have Junior Noel, actor, and he's going to be with us very, very soon, talking about why I never left the church to play. We're coming up very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick break right here and we'll be back.